Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the North Shore Radio Club, held tonight only on Zoom. So if you're standing at Heller listening to this, you made a mistake. Okay, enough of my bad jokes. Uh, this evening, we are pleased to have a presenter, Dennis Grisiak, K0TX, who has a company called DigiRig. I'm going to read a short statement about it, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dennis. DigiRig is an open source integrated digital modes interface for amateur radio. And with that, Dennis, why don't you take that over and share your screen, and the floor is yours.
All right, thanks for inviting me. So let me set up the screen sharing. Is my audio okay?
Yes.
Okay, so can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Yet it's coming up.
There we are.
Yep, got it.
All right, so I'm Dennis Grisiak, K0TX. I'm a developer and ham behind the DigiRig product. I was licensed in 2020. I kind of stepped into hobby by accident. I was working on solving an antenna problem in my Wi-Fi project, and all the good information on antennas kept bringing me to the ham radio themed website. So that kind of sparked my interest, and like, oh well, I have this license, that license, might as well get ham license, whatever that is. So I licensed through all three levels pretty quickly. My engineering background made it easy. In some aspects, some things I had to understand anew, some things I had to memorize. You all guys know how it goes. But anyway, it continued beyond just the licensing. I started playing and experimenting, and soon enough, I found that the digital modes interfaces are not all that great, and they can be improved. So I built DigiRig for myself and shared the design on the internet. So people started to ask to make one for them, and the rest is a history. Now it's in tens of thousands on in go backs and in ham shacks. So that's a little bit of the history of how DigiRig came to be. So what does it do? It's the interface for digital modes. When we talk about digital modes, we talk about sound card based digital modes. It's basically when we use the audio channel for the audio, for the data encoded in the form of audio. So we don't use any specialized radio, like in case of DMR, Fusion, or D-Star. Those modes, typically on FM, they require specialized hardware supports from the radio. Digital modes that are sound card based, they can work with any radio that is capable of transmitting and receiving audio. I had people connecting old tube radios and boat anchors, and enjoying FT8 and other digital modes with the sound card based interface like DigiRig. And it's those of you who remember, that's equivalent of dial-up modem when you use regular audio phone line for transmitting data. So basically you take zeros and ones and turn them into beeps and boops and send them through the audio channel. Given enough bandwidth, you can send it through tin can and string. But in this case, we use the ham radio audio channel. So as I mentioned, it's different from other modes. Like CW is just an unmodulated carrier. That's different. And the DMR and Fusion, it's more like almost like a network card that is specialized hardware. And the same with other radios like Meshtastic or Wi-Fi. Those use also specialized hardware, which is not the case here in the modes that we're talking here. So what are advantages, disadvantages, and reasons we would want to use the digital modes? thing is, computers have pretty good ears. Even the younger folks around among us can't hear quite as well as computers do, and it's possible to push data at really low power and really weak signal across impressive distances without having very expensive setup. It's unusual for people who got their DX 100 that they had to invest quite a bit into the equipment. Now you can have 20-watt radio and wire in the attic and have contacts across the world with just some cheap Zygo radio. And that makes the hobby more rewarding for those who start, so they can have the excitement of exotic connections before they spend the fortune. Those who stick eventually will spend the fortune, but they can start early and get a taste of DX and long distance contacts, or other modes like sending images and things like that. So another thing is like effective use of bandwidth. Those who's operated FT8, so that you can see 36 stations basically fitting into the single 3 kilohertz voice channel. When there's a contest going on, it's really hard to get a spot on 20 meters for voice contact, but anybody who has a computer connected to the radio can still find the opportunity to have contacts on FT, because so many stations can be operating within the same short 3 kilohertz bandwidth. Another opportunity is for systematic logging. Again, coming back to FT8, more than half of all the logged contacts these days are from this mode alone, and it's not necessarily because it's popular, which it is, but because logging is so easy. You made a contact, it's pretty much automatically there in your log, and you can upload it to website and exchange and confirm and things like that. And as I mentioned, DX with modest equipment is also a big deal for especially those who just start. Popular use cases is emergency preparedness, because you can talk a lot to describe a spreadsheet, but nothing replaces just attaching the file to a WinLink message and sending it over when you really need data that is in a digital format sent across the community. And I have a lot of police departments and sheriff offices buying equipment just for this particular purpose. Then we have parks on the air, summits on the air, moonbounds, and ISS and satellite work. All of those require quick contacts with weak signals, and digital modes make it available and accessible. So these are very popular modes, and especially parks on the air now is very popular. Allow people, especially those who are just starting out, to experience a rush of being piled upon. It's hard to get out on voice and have Europe or Africa excited about you being on the air, but you drive to a park 5 miles away from you, and all of a sudden you're a celebrity on the air. You have 10 people trying to talk to you at the same time. So it's exciting mode of operation, and digital modes allow you to save your activation if you learn that the bands are not cooperating and you're already in the park. If you cannot activate it on voice, you can always whip a computer, and it's going to be much easier to complete the activation and log it and have people hunting you. So we mentioned DX and contesting, and remote operation. Having the computer connected to your radio allows people to operate their station remotely, even if it's nothing to do with digital modes. You can basically log into your computer remotely and have voice contacts or or send WinLink emails or whatever. So this is made possible by having the computer connected to your radio, and especially if there's a CAT control computer aided transceiver mode, you can change the VFO and activate filters and things like that. And another use case is a science experimentation. Those who played with WSJTX probably saw whisper mode. This is a way to study the propagation with sub watt power. It's really slow mode, but the idea is not to transfer a lot of data, but get your pretty much call sign across, and it allows multiple stations to participate and study the propagation effects and conditions. Here on the picture on the right, you can see Nicole Ayers on ISS, and behind her there's a Kenwood TM D710. This is assisted with ARIS International Space Amateur Radio and International Space Station Group. That radio participates in APRS and voice contact. So there is a digital mode available there, and ARIS is working on expanding that into additional packet modes and ISS. Currently, ISS is handled by the Russian side of International Space Station, but ARIS group here in the United States, of which I happen to be a part of engineering, we are working on getting the digital modes there, including SSTV. So now let's talk about popular digital modes that are available. The digital modes has a legacy that started a long time ago. Some of the modes kind of dropped off. You can still operate them, but it's probably not going to be a lot of contacts unless you arrange them. Here on the left, you can see FLDG, free app for Windows, that lists a lot of modes that can be enjoyed through the sound card. The classic ones like RIDI and Olivia, there's some of them are still used, but as I mentioned, one of the most popular is right now is FT8, and it's sibling FT4, which is like a contest, even more compressed version of FT8. This is sort of like a quick dating. You basically exchange your call signs, signal report, and small pleasantries, and the contact is done in basically within 2 minutes. And with FT4, it's even half of that. And as we discussed earlier, multiple stations can participate in these contacts on the same voice frequency. That's why this is a single sideband specific mode, because if you were to try that on FM, we heard that on local repeaters, what happens when multiple stations try to send at the same time, so you cannot barely hear anybody. So it's possible on SSB, you will hear all the station as a chorus of voices on different frequency offsets. So very popular. As I mentioned, more than half of the contacts are logged into that mode. So now there's similar modes that are not as structured as a time-based frames like FT8 and FT4. Those are keyboard-to-keyboard chats. So there's a GSA call, similar protocol like FT8. RIDI, they're still around. There's contests on RIDI and things like that. So you can basically freeform text off of your keyboard, and the remote station will reply, and you can have RACQ or whichever you decide. And there is equivalent on FM called VARC, so also available. So now there's a messaging and location apps. Like we know the APRS, it's automatic position packet reporting system. Additionally to location, it allows short messages and bulletins and all kind of things. Some radios have this protocol embedded. It's not very convenient to use interface on radios to type these messages. So it's possible to use the same modes through the computer with access, or tablet or cell phone with access to better interface to put in messages and communicate. So that's available on sideband as well as on FM. And there's infrastructure that may or may not be available in your area to rebroadcast your APRS messages or send them through the internet so they can pop up in a different area. But APRS can be used directly between radios and don't necessarily require any local infrastructure. There's a well-known comedic feud between the hobbies influencers about usability of APRS. So those who follow YouTube videos familiar with this situation there. So now for email and files, there is a WinLink, which is a shell that allows you to enter emails and make attachment and things like that, and actual modems that convert that digital data into sounds to be transmitted and received by the radio. So the WinLink can be paired with packet voice modem software or with PARA, and there are modems available for HF and FM. Now there's images. It's sort of like a color fax machine over the radio. It works in the same way. It line by line sends images, and people exchanging QSL cards directly through the radio, and it's called slow scan TV. And sometimes there are International Space Station events, so you can receive images beamed from the orbit. So, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a Whisper protocol for studying the propagation. Okay, moving on to equipment and software. So we talked about DigiRig being a sound card. Basically, software in your computer will be responsible for generating sounds for the radio. Additionally to that, and more of a traditional hardware is called TNC, the terminal node controller. It's a dedicated hardware that has the protocol hard-coded into it. So it unloads the computing from the computer or tablet or cell phone. And it was important when the computing capabilities of those devices were very limited. Now computers are much faster, so there's no huge benefit in hardware that's specialized on that encoding. And another issue is that TNCs are one-trick ponies, so they would only support one protocol. So other popular protocols are not supported in TNCs, and in those cases, sound card is the only way to go. So sound cards require additional pieces of software that do encoding, but they offer a lot more flexibility. You basically can swap out the software and switch from one protocol to another, from one operation mode to another. Now, many of the new radios, especially in the premium category or desktop, have the internal interface. So the popular ones are, for example, ICOM IC7300 or Yaesu FT991A. These, and more expensive radios as well, these have the sound card and serial port in them. So there's a direct USB connection between the radio and the computer. And to computer, the radio appears the same way the DigiRig does. There's a sound card with input and output devices and the serial COM port. So if you were interested in digital modes, first, look in the back of your radio and see if there's a USB port. If there's one, chances are you're all set and you don't need any additional hardware other than USB cable. A notable exception from that is radio pictured here. Very popular Parks on Air darling is FT891, which has a USB port, but it doesn't have a sound card in it. That's why you can see there's a DigiRig closing the gap. So the external interface models. So there's a range of legacy devices. Like popular one before DigiRig came to market was SignalLink. There's several other ones, but most of them are quite a bit larger and don't have more expensive and or less capable. So that's why I felt like there is a room for additional interface that is more optimized for portable operations without compromising the features and without costing a fortune. So there are different ways to connect interface optimally. If your radio has accessory connection in the back, that should be used. But even the radios that don't have that can be interfaced just through the microphone and the headphones jack. So depending on capabilities, there are options. Still, if your radio is capable of getting audio on the air, there's a way to connect it to the computer. So lots of mobile radios, mid-range radios don't have any accessory ports. Then just pop out the microphone, plug the cable that goes through DigiRig or interface of your choice, optionally headphone jack, and you are off to the races. So we already mentioned some of the software. WSJTX is for FT8, FT4, and many other modes. Some of them are quite exotic, like for moonbounds and other things. GSA call, keyboard to keyboard, Rev2 type of thing. FLDigi, another free software, lots of legacy modes there. It's available for Windows. I think it's also available for other platforms too. So WinLink is for emails and attachment, and it works with bar and sound modem. And MSS-TV is for slow scan TV. And now there's a growing list of apps available on Android and iOS. I specifically designed one of the DigiRigs to make it more usable with portable platforms and mobile platforms like Android and iOS, even before there were many apps there, to kind of stimulate the development of those apps, because there was not a good option that kind of plug and play digital modes interface. So now there's DigiRig Lite that is optimized for these smartphone platforms, and I'm pleased to see that there's a growing list of apps popping up all the time for all sorts of digital modes. So now, additionally to individual apps that are usually free, there are whole suites of apps that usually are not free, or at least they require support of the developer of some form, if not subscription, then through donation platforms. So one of them is HRD, Ham Radio Deluxe, and another one is MCOM Tools, maintained by Gaston, the tech prepper. Additionally to apps that are specifically for digital modes, responsible for encoding the sounds, there are apps that actually not participating in data, but help to visualize and log contacts. Among them is a grid tracker. It's a great app to visualize your contacts with like lines on the globe, and you can optimize for chasing grids or continents or countries and things like that. You can see who's calling CQ, where they are, and things like that. And PSK Reporter is a great website that will show who's hearing you. And it's a great way to troubleshoot the connection. So functions of the interface. On the left, you can see the rendering of DigiRig Mobile. There's a couple of chips in there. So the big one is the sound card. So that's what is responsible for connecting the computer to the radio, the audio from computer and from the radio. So it's a basically general purpose sound card that is interfaced to the radio, and to computer it appears as a speaker and microphone. So another chip there is the serial port. So that is used for, in this case, of the control of the radio. So for keying up the push to talk, and for serial cat control in the radios that support this feature. The serial port can also be used for programming radios, including HTs, like for example, DigiRig Mobile can be used for uploading stations list to radios like Baofangs, and there are cables that are available. So troubleshooting topic, you can see on the right here is my desk, very messy, but I hooked up radio to the computer and I'm watching them talk through the serial port, trying to figure out what's going on. Ultimately, it was very silly, just like a broken wire situation. But anyway, so when troubleshooting, back to to fundamentals, that means that no matter how well digital interface works, it still relies on a radio to get the audio from you to the remote station and a signal from the remote station back to you. So before you even start troubleshooting things, you need to make sure that the radio actually works. You can hear traffic on the bandwidth, on the frequency, and you can use another radio to make sure that your signal getting on the air. You can do voice, whistle, or anything like that just to make sure that the radio actually works, because without that, nothing gonna work. So another thing, simplify until it works. Lots of people will throw things together and flip the switch and pray that it works. Sometimes it does, but oftentimes it doesn't. So the point of the troubleshooting exercise is to remove complexity until you get to where it works. So if it's on Android or Linux, go back to Windows. If it has some exotic software you never used, go to something you're familiar with that's simple to configure. Even if it's not the purpose of the setup, first thing to do is get to where something works. Because I heard a lot, nothing works. Well, something always works. Monitor is on, app is launching. So you need to start with what works and expand, adding one thing at a time. So that's the next area, one change at a time. So in course of troubleshooting, once you start from something that works, don't change a lot, change one thing. If it works, good, move to the next thing. If it doesn't, you know what prevents it from working. It was the last thing you changed. So that's an isolation of concern. And also, if, for example, computer detected the sound card, the USB connection is good. There is nothing that makes us return to USB connection again. We know that it works. We capture this success, and it's going to stay there. So there's no need to switch from one thing to another. Once concerns are isolated, we can move from one to another area without repeating effort. So when people say I spent 10 days trying to make this work, it means that they probably repeated the same things and just didn't have a system of troubleshooting. So the weird kind of thing is RFI. That's something that can make things really erratic and unpredictable. One thing that allows to troubleshoot it is that things working fine until you start to transmit. If there's no error, is everything's working smooth, and all of a sudden everything just goes haywire when you try to transmit, it's possible that it has to do with RFI. The way to isolate that is to reduce the RF power and, if available, transmit into the dummy load. And if the problem goes away, that has to do with RFI. Especially on HTs with the mounted antennas, it's very common because these radios don't have enough ground plane, so they will use anything that's connected to them as a ground plane. You can often find a little exposed screw on the side of HT, so when you hold the radio, you become part of the ground plane. But once you connect the interface for digital modes, all of these cables become part of the antenna system, part of the radial system, and there will be high RF voltages present on those cables, potentially disrupting USB connection and other things. So it's possible to use chokes, and it's better if the antenna is not mounted, but a remote antenna, which also is choked away from the radio to prevent that. More is to do with the audio levels, obviously, and with some modes, things might not work if the time on the computer is off. So it's another thing worth checking for. I recommend, especially first time around, to take notes because, even if everything works half a year from now, you need to repeat that in the field. It's almost guaranteed you'll forget something. So I had quite a few, arrogance lessons. When I was pretty certain I know what I'm doing, and I would travel somewhere with a gear that I quickly threw together, and I'm in the field, and all of a sudden I find that I didn't check the list and I'm missing something, or it takes long time to figure something out that I thought I knew. So anyway, happens to all of us. So I recommend taking notes when you go through the setup and when you have successful setup. And as I mentioned, repeating the same steps, trying getting negative result and trying to do it again, it's a definition of insanity. When you're trying the same thing and expecting different result. So nothing wrong with asking for help if you have people in your club, as you guys do. So if you encountered difficulties, no need to get super frustrated. Ask for help. Somebody probably finished that before and they know how to do it. So getting out to DigiRig specifics, I have cables for most popular radios. It's most likely whichever radio you have, it's possible to just get the kit that will connect it to the computer without having to solder anything. On the DigiRig website, on the homepage, there's a gear recommender. You can put the model number into the input, and it will recommend the components that will get you connected. DigiRig is started as open source. It's never was intended as a commercial product, so it started as open source and it continues in that spirit. All the schematics, all the documentation is available on the website, so anybody can pick under the hood and criticize if they want. But because of that criticism, it went through multiple iterations and it improved over the years. So now it's pretty much where it needs to be and at scale. So always open for more suggestions, though. There's a community forum and documentations and videos by DigiRig, videos by all sorts of hobby influencers. So there's no shortage of information. But I'm especially proud with the community forum. It's very active venue and lots of people volunteering just their knowledge and their time helping other hams. So there's almost no questions that go unanswered. So I mentioned that it's fairly affordable interface comparing to other options there. And I'm basically the owner and operator. There's nobody else. So it's a pretty small company, but because of my experience with delivering products like that to the market, it was possible to just make it happen like that. All right, so I'm first ham and then entrepreneur, so all of that is for good time on the air. So I'm absolutely encouraging anybody to homebrew things. The reason the DigiRig uses common 3.5 millimeter jacks is to make cables easy to homebrew. You can just go and get off Amazon some regular audio cables and put the connectors on them and save money. Everything is published, all the schematics for all the cables. So by all means, if you want to save money, if you want to experiment, if you want to have a club project, save money, don't buy it from me or anybody else. Build your stuff, experiment, make mistakes, get frustrated, get successful. It's all part of the ham way. So see what's available, what you can enjoy in your area. So if your club members are doing a lot of WinLink or APRS or things like that. It's going to be much more fun to do that with other people. So see what club is doing, what modes are popular. If they're not, suggest trying new thing. We have separate part of the local club that is absolutely non-formal. There's no structure in terms of like non-profit or all of these reports or things like that. There's just mailing list when somebody goes doing parks on the air or play with GPSs and APRSs and things like that. They have like a role-playing things, all sorts of things specifically centered around activities. So see if you can do that and enjoy playing with the radio, including digital modes. Enjoy the journey. Some of the things may be frustrating, and that's fine. I mean, take time, go touch the grass, and come back to it and play some more. It's no need to take it super serious, and get super obsessed with it. Hang out with other people, have projects together. I mentioned Parks on the Air and Summits on the Air. Those are great experiences. If somebody hasn't tried yet, I would highly recommend doing that, regardless of the modes. Digital modes certainly make it guaranteed to succeed almost. But even if your thing is CW or voice, I would recommend going outside and trying it. Modest equipment, absolutely different experience from your shack. Don't have to go on the long walks. You can just drive in, sit at the bench. Super fun. So yeah, make connection on the air, make connection in communities on the internet and in real life, and you can see that you guys have a great club going on. So keep doing that. And I always try to remind people that this is hobby. There's just take it easy. It's there's lots of egos involved, but in the end, it's just for fun and play. So I always try to kind of remind people that. And we're back to the questions, and you can see here me operating in the forest, and I have visitor here, non-licensed operator showing interest in my equipment. So yeah, go ahead with any questions. I'm gonna try to open the chat and see if you guys had anything submitted. Stop sharing.
Doesn't look like anybody had a question in the chat.
I have a yeah. So if there's any questions, you feel free to speak up or post in the chat. I hope I didn't put all of you to sleep here.
Saw some people with their hands waving. I saw Chris and somebody else. I saw two hands floating
Just-
across the screen.
If somebody wants to ask a question, unmute yourself and start talking.
Yep.
All right. No questions, guys? No. Rich Davidson, anything for him? You always got good ones. You're muted, Rich.
We had some problems unmuting a moment ago. Seems to be working now. Chris, did you have a question?
No, actually, I was just thanking Dennis for his product and his talk. I use it a lot. Use it for a lot of HTs. Before I got my IC 705, was using it on a bunch of radios. So it's great. I love it.
Awesome. I appreciate your support. And yeah, I mean, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the product and with digital modes in general. I didn't want to make it specifically about DigiRig, kind of infomercial type. So hopefully, some of you learned something new about digital modes in general. And if you want to stop by the DigiRig booth, I'll be at Ohio, Dayton, and I'll be in the Gigaparts corner of the venue. So if you guys attending, I'll be happy to see you there.
Dennis, what's your product line? Just the one DigiRig device, or is there more?
Yeah, let me do sharing of the screen, and
'Cause I looked at the website. I saw that. I wanted to see what
there
else.
are several now. So I'm going to share the website. So now there is an article called Choosing DigiRig Model that goes through the options that are available. So there's a flagship model is a DigiRig Mobile. This guy here, it has sound card and a serial port. So this is something you would want to use if your radio supports cat control. So that allows you to connect the not only audio but also serial connection for the cat control. If your radio does not have cat control, you can get DigiRig Lite, which is also sound card. It also supports multiple PTT modes, the hardware PTT modes, but it also supports PTT by Vox, and it's not the Vox that's like in your radio, optimized for the voice mode. It's the digital Vox, which is very responsive, and it's the reason for it is when used with the mobile apps, many of them have no concept of keying up the radio. So this feature will basically key up the radio automatically anytime there is a payload. The audio that comes out of the app, it will key up the radio automatically and really quick, so you're not going to get any data lost from that. And it's designed in the form factor of a cable, so with a USB-C native connector, and adapter to USB-A is included. So this can be used with computers, tablets, cell phones, and it's really lightweight option. And you can share the same cables. If you already have DigiRig cables from your DigiRig Mobile, you can still use the same cables with a DigiRig Lite. Now there's a DigiRig DR891. That one is specifically designed for Yaesu FT891. As I mentioned in presentation, this radio, even though very popular, it has kind of quirky implementation of a computer interface. It does have its own serial port, but it does not have a sound card. So this interface, DR891, allows you to connect the radio to the computer through a single USB port. So super integrated, really a popular model there. And there's experimental Vox PTT cable there in the picture at the top. This is for older cell phones that don't have USB connection, but do have 3.5 millimeter jack for headset. So that's an option to interface those older devices as well. So here are all four options that are presented in a table with different features and reasons to use them. So hopefully this answers your question. Now on the home page, if you go and put in your radio model, just numeric, for example, 817. So here we have Yaesu FT817. Once you select that, it will recommend you the interface, configuration on the interface, cables, all the options that are available, and the USB cable. If you don't have one already, you can add everything at the same time. And this will also link to all the discussions in the forum associated with this radio. So if you need additional information, you can learn it there. So that's about available items there. And you can also browse the catalog and see there's lots of cables available. And recently I added HF and FET antenna. That's also becoming very popular. Same story. Didn't plan to make it a product, but people wanted it. I can also share that under all products. It's this one here. So it's a spool antenna I designed for myself because I do lots of parks in the air, and I wanted something that is really quick to set up and really quick to break down. and this is end-fed antenna with a transformer in the center there, and it unspools like a fishing reel. And if you have a mast or a tree, you can set it up real quick and then wind it back down. So that's speaking of the items available.
Dennis, how do you compare yourself to the Signal Link USB, this device, which has been around, and of course there's always the Ring Blaster.
It's a
You
classic.
don't have the controls on it for one thing.
Yes, I don't, and I consider that a benefit because DigiRigs are used in Go packs, and you want it to be ready to go, out of the bag. You can also use it in the shack as well, obviously, and the same settings are available through computer interface. But additionally, if you can see me, I don't know if I'm on the screen right now.
Well, I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, so this is size of 9-volt battery, and this is the entirety of the interface, which has more functionality than Signal-Link. The Signal-Link is equivalent of DigiRig Lite, which is sound card and a PTT controller. DigiRig Mobile, what you see here, is sound card, PTT control, and also serial CAT interface. So it has more features, it's much smaller, and after you added all of the features that you need for your kit, it's more affordable. So
Good to know. Thank you.
sure. Yep.
We good with the questions, guys?
Looks that
Brian?
way. Looks that way, Brian. I think
How many people
anyone.
in our club use something like this? I'm just kind of curious.
Can you say it again?
I'm just, it's more, I guess, for the whole club, but how does, how many people in our club use an interface like this? I'm just kind of curious.
I probably have a minimum of 4.
I've got 2 rigs. One happens to be an Icom 7800, and that's analog, so I need a Signal Link to use FT8. I also have a Flex, which is digital, which does everything, of course, through Ethernet, where I don't need it. But that's the point. If you have an analog radio, you need it if you want to run FT8 or any other digital mode.
I have one for my T90.
Sorry, if you use Echolink, for example, to talk to our repeater, you talk to an DigiRig unit. That's what my 880 is connected to. So.
And if you guys have any communal projects like club repeaters and things like that, feel free to reach out. I oftentimes sponsor equipment for communal use. Like if there's a emergency preparedness group that needs to set up equipment for preparedness purposes and things like that. If it's not individual purpose, reach out and we'll see what we can do about it.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Much appreciated, my friend.
Of course, thanks for inviting me, and you guys have a great club going, and hope to see somebody of you in Dayton.
Thank you again, Dennis. And that's a great segue into my next comment, which is regarding Dayton. I know we have some people going to Dayton, and if anyone hasn't bought tickets yet, whoops, there's 2 of them in the packet here, all paid for. All you have to do is show up at the field day site, at the flea market site. But anyway, they're still here. Everybody wants them. So with that, I think that's about all I had for this evening. Sorry.
We'll talk about the next meeting. And also, maybe I could throw in a plug for the VE session. We're doing one this Sunday.
Please do. Throw in the plug.
I don't know. Alvin, you want to talk about field day
Sure.
preparation?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great opportunity.
Why do
I encourage everybody to sign up for the operations schedule, the sheet, so operating, obviously. Udo have you? It's published, right?
Yes.
Yep, very good. So that's there. And then obviously we need volunteers for setting up and taking field day materials down. There's also a sign up for that. Please feel free to sign up. If you have any questions, you're not sure, how and what and where, call Udo, call me. We can give you some backdrop on what's really required. In general, it's also the setup and the takedown is fairly social. It's not like hard work, but it's fun to do, and there's a lot of hands needed to get it where it needs to be. I'll stop there. If you have any questions now, feel free to speak up, and if not, reach out to Udo or myself.
As
Or Jay for that
more
matter. Actually, Jay's
volunteers
around
we
too.
have, as less work is for individual.
That's right. Yep. And Brian is here, so any one of the four of us can probably give you a little bit of a backdrop as to what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Anyone else care to make a comment about anything before we close out the meeting? All right, then.
Well, I have a
I will,
question.
Please go ahead with your question.
I was wondering if we have an update on the 2-meter fusion repeater.
Okay. Here's the latest update on the 2-meter repeater. I have been in contact with Greg Karloff via email, and he agreed that it might be a good idea to put the original Yaesu fusion repeater, which works successfully in many other locations, at the Deerfield site, and that he was going to contact Deerfield and make sure that it would be okay to do that. That said, I've not heard from him for over a week on that subject, so I need to contact him again. That's about where we're at with it. I hope that answers your question. I know that doesn't solve the issue yet.
We will anxiously await his response, I guess.
I am anxiously awaiting his response. I also suggested to him that we do have a team of other people who are qualified to do some of this work that could help and assist him without, that he could to assist in doing some of this stuff. It doesn't have to be him doing it alone. He has a very busy life right now. He has 2 small children living with him, grandchildren, and he works full time. So it's difficult for him to find the time. But it's a lot more convenient to get to Deerfield because there's no third party involved. He has the key to the room that things are in, so he can get there when he needs to get there. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss tonight?
On a related topic,
Please do.
on a related topic, Yaesu's introducing the new DR3 repeater at the convention. So stop by the booth, the Yaesu booth, to see it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be in the market for another repeater.
Not necessarily. I just thought I'd mention the fact that they're introducing a new model. That's all.
Okay, wonderful. All right, if that's all we have, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Chuck. All in favor, please indicate by leaving the meeting.